There's a point where freedom doesn't die with a bang. It dies with paperwork, with signatures, with people nodding along because, well, it's just one law, right? The Handmaid's Tale isn't about some distant nightmare. It's about Tuesday turning into tyranny before you've finished your coffee. And the truly terrifying bit? We've seen this before. Let's talk about how civilizations commit suicide, not with wars or plagues, but with a slow, methodical dismantling of everything that made them bearable in the first place. Atwood didn't invent Gilead out of thin air. She stitched it together from the ugly bits of human history we'd rather forget. Puritanical America, where they drowned women for reading. Stalin's Soviet Union, where neighbors reported neighbors. The Iranian Revolution of 1979, where rights evaporated overnight. All real, all terrifyingly mundane in their execution. Here's how it starts: a crisis, real or manufactured. Doesn't matter. In Gilead, it's a fertility collapse. Suddenly, there's a problem that needs solving, and when people are scared, properly scared, they will trade freedom for the promise of safety faster than you can say temporary measure. First, they freeze women's bank accounts, just a precaution, they say. Then they remove them from the workforce for protection, naturally. Each step small enough to swallow, each one setting the stage for the next. It's the salami slicing method of oppression. Thin enough that you don't notice you're being consumed until there's nothing left. The real genius of Gilead's rise, and this is where it gets uncomfortably familiar, is how they use language as a weapon. They don't call it slavery, they call it service. They don't call it rape, they call it the ceremony. Orwell knew the game well. Control the words and you control the thoughts. The handmaids aren't stolen, they're reassigned. Children aren't kidnapped, they're rehomed to proper families. Every atrocity gets a euphemism, every horror a holy justification. And then there's religion, the twisted beauty of weaponized faith. Gilead takes cherry-picked Bible verses and constructs an entire architecture of control. Be fruitful and multiply becomes a death sentence for bodily autonomy. The story of Rachel and her handmaid Bilhah becomes state policy. It's not new, this perversion of the sacred. The Crusades did it, the Inquisition did it. Every authoritarian regime finds a book to stand on while crushing people beneath it. But here's the bit that should truly terrify you. It works because enough people chose comfort over courage. The Marthas, the econo people, the wives, they're not all believers. Many know it's wrong, but they have food, shelter, a role. They have survival, and survival, it turns out, is a powerful anesthetic for conscience. Hannah Arendt called it the banality of evil, this ordinary willingness to participate in extraordinary horror. The bureaucrats who processed the paperwork, the guards who just followed orders, the citizens who simply looked away. Gilead didn't need everyone to be a zealot, it just needed most people to be quiet. And history, our actual factual history, shows us how devastatingly easy that is to achieve. Let's crawl inside Offred's head for a moment, because this is where the real horror lives. Not in the public executions or the color-coded uniforms, but in the slow erosion of self. Imagine waking up one day and your name isn't you anymore. You are not June, you're Offred. Offred. A possession, a function. Your past isn't forbidden. It's worse than that. It's treated as if it never existed at all. The psychological warfare Gilead employs is masterclass level cruelty. They don't just imprison bodies, they colonize minds. The aunts, those informers of feminine subjugation, use a twisted maternal authority to break women down and rebuild them as compliant vessels, electric cattle prods wrapped in biblical verses. It's Pavlovian conditioning meets theological justification, and the result is a kind of induced dissociation where you watch yourself participate in your own oppression. Offred's story is devastatingly human. She's neither perfect rebel nor broken victim, but a true survivor. She recites prayers she doesn't believe, plays Scrabble with the commander like letters are life rafts, and steals moments with Nick, reclaiming slivers of desire in a system designed to erase it. These tiny acts aren't grand resistance, they're reminders that being human is itself revolutionary in Gilead. The surveillance state doesn't just watch, it makes you watch yourself. The eyes could be anyone. Your walking partner, the guardian at the checkpoint, the Martha preparing you dinner. Paranoia becomes a survival skill, trust becomes suicide, and in that atmosphere the mind does something terrible. It begins to police itself. You don't need a guard in every room when you've internalized the guard. Foucault called it the panopticon effect. The prison where you become your own jailer. And then there are the others. Moira, who rebels openly and pays the price. Janine, whose mind fractures under the pressure. Serena Joy, who helped build the cage and now finds herself trapped inside it. Each response to trauma is different. Each strategy for survival unique. Some resist, some comply, some simply break. There is no moral hierarchy here. Just the messy, complicated reality of humans trying to endure the unendurable. The intergenerational trauma is perhaps the most insidious part. Children raised in Gilead won't remember the before times. They will think this is normal. They will believe women who can read are dangerous. They will internalize the hierarchy as natural order. It only takes one generation, sometimes less, for atrocity to become tradition. The daughters of Gilead won't need to be coerced. They'll enforce it themselves, believing they're righteous. That's how totalitarianism achieves immortality, not through force, but through forgetting. And if you're sitting there thinking this is all fiction, all safely contained between the covers of a book, let me introduce you to 2026. Surveillance capitalism tracks your every click. Reproductive rights are legislative battlegrounds. Deepfakes and AI-generated propaganda make truth negotiable. We carry tracking devices voluntarily, surrender our biometric data for convenience, allow algorithms to curate our reality. The tools of Gilead exist. We have just painted them in cheerful corporate colors and called them progress. Atwood wrote Gilead as a warning, not a prophecy, but warnings only work if someone's listening. The signs are always there. The casual erosion of rights, the normalization of surveillance, the creeping rhetoric that dehumanizes the other. Our job is noticing, questioning, refusing to be comfortable when comfort requires someone else's suffering. Gilead happened because good people decided their discomfort wasn't worth the risk of speaking up. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And right now, we're in the rhyming part. So, pay attention. Stay awake. Choose courage.